force. There's going to be more workload on other employees. They're going to be doing 2-3 times the amount of work, and you're going to lose them also. So again, I'm going to go back to calibration here. So I think we've beaten this one to death, and let's keep it going. Joel, what are you talking about today?
All right. Personality hires, pros, cons, and 4 critical keys. So this article is all about, hiring people just purely based on their personality, like whether or not they're going to bring energy to the office, right? Like they'll be the ones to get the happy hour started. They'll be the ones to bring excitement into the office. And then looking at like, what are the things you got to think about? Obviously, you've got to still think about like, can they do the job? You've got to think like, is this ultimately going to be a wise business decision? But what I thought was interesting is in the whole time I've been in recruitment, I cannot really remember ever doing a personality hire or being tasked with that.
That's why you and I are unhireable. We are unhireable.
No, I'm saying like I've never worked a search
yourself.
where the hiring manager said, "Hey, forget the experience, forget the accomplishments. We're just looking for a good personality." So, have you seen this, Adam, Danielle?
Let's roll this up a minute, because I think this all kind of rolls into the F word, which I hate. I've talked about it nauseum. Is the F word in recruiting, which is fit. I hate culture fit, and a lot of companies fall into this, and they say they don't, but it's one of the worst biases out there. Like bias, it's one of the worst biases in recruiting, and I see it all day long. All day. The hiring manager just doesn't like the person. Now, some people are unlikable. We know this, right? We work with these people. We know these people, even our friends and family, right? And there's a balance between someone who's a good person and like just there's an energy, but they have the skills, they have everything you need. That's why you need to have multiple people interview before you make that decision. So I think companies really need to be mindful. And then we also get into neurodiversity. You mentioned something before, Joel. You said, we need someone to come in and start the happy hour. Well, is that person's title director of events and marketing? Or they're a programmer and you're expecting them to do it, right? So I think you have to be mindful about where someone falls on the introvert extrovert spectrum, and how important is that, and do you really need that, and is there a bias against it?
Yep. No, I 100% agree.
There's this concept that I came across when I was working more in like the workplace world, which is there's a type E employee. And the type E is like the extrovert, the person who is exceptional at their job, but also people tend to go to, if they are new to the organization, they don't know anyone. They're the type of person who, naturally is like kind of this magnetic personality. And they also tend to be one of those like nodes, those like relational intelligence maps where you can kind of understand the organization.
Right.
So they tend to be one of the bigger nodes within those maps. And the thing that ends up happening is a lot of the time they get burnt out. And so that's another consideration here. I think I don't think that people necessarily make hires based on personality, but I think when you are like personality alone. But I'm saying when you're thinking and considering which candidate do I want to, bring in and actually hire, I think it comes down to, well, what does the organization need right now? Do we need someone who is more of a connector and who can show up and like be a friendly face, or do we want someone who's just like a workhorse and who's going to just get the job done?
That's a fair point. I think it's a fair take on that. Joel, thoughts?
Look, I think to Adam's point too, I've seen it a lot where you'll hear things like, yeah, I could see myself getting a beer with that person, or like particularly one of the industries I worked in was
stuck in the airport. That's a good one.
Yeah. Like, and
thank God we weren't stuck in the airport.
And a lot of times I do think that, to your point too, Danielle, like it isn't just alone on personality that people are making decisions.
Can we fix that, by the way? The whole name thing. Sorry, I'm rude. I'm interrupting.
But like I do think that like people are still making decisions like this. I just think if you're like to Daniel, to your point, like you got to know overall in your organization if this is what's needed, and I think you got to make it clear that somehow to if you're hiring someone like this, like, hey, we're bringing you in for this purpose as well, and maybe compensate people as well. I do see people getting burned out. Like if you're hired for a job and then suddenly you're expected to like be the person who, like I had this example one time. I had somebody told me, "You're great."
Oh, that's us. That's us. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy
Morning.
Tuesday, crew. What's happening, crew?
Morning. I'm in Florida, so
Uh-oh.
wish me luck. Yep.
Almost in the eye of the storm. Joel, how you doing? Joel's mic is not on, so we're just going to continue like the show is
Joel's
just.
on mute.
Joel's on mute. Joel's on mute. Danielle, you're not
Stop.
near the storm. There he is. Joel, what's up, man?
I love how on the intro segment, every single time it's me getting cut off. I love that. It's like planned by Adam, I think.
I have no control here. Our control room is on the West Coast. We're just over here doing this thing. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the HR Morning Show, the #1 spot for all things HR all morning long. I'm here with my amazing co-host Danielle Farage and Joel Lalgy, and we're going to get the show going here. And don't forget, we're part of Purple Acorn, the only online community of HR professionals, decision makers, tech-savvy individuals, and entrepreneurs interested in the latest HR news and updates. And if you're hungry for more, head over to purpleacorn.io, link it up on the bottom there, and follow us on LinkedIn and follow all of our individual accounts. Joel needs more followers, so you got to stay on top of Joel. And if you're watching us, never enough. And if you're watching us live right now, sound off in the comments. Joel will be keeping an eye on that. And we're live every Tuesday right here, 10 a.m. on the East Coast, 7 a.m. on the West Coast, on LinkedIn and YouTube. Leave a comment, get engaged, we'll get involved. And don't worry, if you miss an episode, you can catch us on YouTube. And, if you can't get enough of us here, get us in your ears. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Oh, did I say that? Podcast. I didn't mean to get that plug in here. And we love the positive vibes so much that we're going to bring our buddy George back. Maybe we'll make it our mantra. Hit it.
Our Acorn is so unique. Oftentimes we see it as just one piece and not really understanding the full scope and the purpose of it. Inside of one acorn is hundreds more of acorns, and when you think about that and what that could be, most people just say it's a nut, right? It's nothing more of that. Then you look at it, and if you will, you can search acorn trees and look at the trees, and you realize the inside one thing is a countless amounts of other things. There's so much growth and development. There's power. There's life. And so I want to encourage you, when you think about acorns, don't look at it as just one thing. Look at it as there's more inside of that. There's more to come. There's more opportunities. There's more adventures. And so when you look at an acorn, it could just look like a nut. It could be a tree. It could be a forest.
Wow.
Power of acorn is so.
Wow. I mean, and we also don't get the full fit check, but George is rocking the most killer red suede Air Maxes. Right,
They were
Danielle?
so cool.
I have a photo of that. We'll put it up for next
You
week.
did take a photo.
That was one of my favorite moments.
Yeah, Joel. Joel lives vicariously, but we will have the full team. I heard a little rumor that we're trying to get the gang together for Transform in March. That we might be getting the whole gang together for a proper live Purple Acorn to Transform. We're working on it. There's a little alpha. There's a little alpha for everybody. What are your thoughts on that, Joel?
Epic.
I'm ready. It's going to be transformational. It's going to be amazing.
He wants to be united with both of us, IRL. Reunited.
I mean, yeah, no, it'll be great.
Or just with me.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Reunited at Transform.
We will get the
I
gang
think I
together.
met both of you for the first time at Transform.
Yeah.
No, we hung out at Wreckfest, dude.
Yeah.
And you weren't at Transform.
We met.
Yeah, no, we were. Yes, of course you were. We had dumplings.
We did.
And we gambled a little bit. You saw my blackjack magic.
You
I wasn't
lost
able to
better.
replicate that though at HR Tech. I did not. The tables were not nice to me.
They were nice.
Sure.
They were nice to Evan, though. Apparently, well, the
They
slot
were
machine
nice
was.
to me.
Slot machines, so much skill involved. There's no wonder why Evan is drawn to those slot machines.
It's basically like recruiting nowadays.
It is basically. Jessica, what's up? Welcome to the show. So let's get the show. We got headlines. Let's get to it. Up first. All right, let's get to this one. Majority of professionals are overwhelmed by this workplace change, according to a LinkedIn study. This one is interesting, and I'm just going to pull it up here. There was a couple of interesting stats. They did a study here. They're saying the most significant changes with AI and working from home and trying to communicate with your manager. So that it says 30% said they could work from home successfully. Does that mean 70% could not work from home successfully? Like, let's invert that is it a bias to say that everybody could successfully work from home? Because what we don't talk about, in my opinion, is not everybody has a great place at home. Not everyone has a home office. Some people have to work at a kitchen table with kids and pets and dogs and everyone like all around them, right? And kids coming home from school early, or maybe there's a lot of people in a small house or a small apartment. So what are you guys' thoughts on this one here? Like, are people being overwhelmed by this work from home and it's just easy to say everybody wants to work from home all the time, it's super easy? Or there's some people that say, you know what? My job is on the line. I am much more productive in an office. I could be focused here. What do you guys think?
Well, as the workplace expert in the room, I really do think, and I've always been of the belief that people deserve the right to discover how they work best and to work in that way. Obviously, there are going to be compromises. What works for the team is really important for the team to function and for the organization to function as a whole. But in my opinion, if you're hiring someone to do a job, it is your responsibility as their employer to enable them to do their job the most effectively as possible. And
Right.
so I'd be curious what success even means, what that looks like if most people don't feel like they can be successful at home. What does that mean? And also consider that for centuries we were working one way,
Right.
right? Going to the office since the Industrial Revolution, going into a space that wasn't really designed with much purpose beyond the factory floor. And obviously there were changes in the workplace and how we, open floor plans and et cetera, et cetera. Co-working spaces were born. But that being said, work from home is an entirely new beast.
Right.
And it's an entirely new system of working and functioning that requires upskilling and training and development. And that is the critical piece that most organizations are not investing in or haven't invested in enough.
Well, I knew we had you here for a reason because I think that's a fantastic take, Danielle. And I think it's also to put things in perspective here. It's managers in setting their employees up for success and having metrics of what success looks like and be able to manage that. And I always say, it's output over hours and not babysitting folks there. If you're hiring somebody, you're going to trust them to do the job wherever they are. Joel, another piece of this study talks about integrating AI into their daily work. What are you hearing and seeing out there, where folks are overwhelmed by thinking they have to use AI, they need to find ways to be faster, or someone else younger and smarter and quicker is going to take their job because they use AI?
Yeah, I think that's is definitely a pressure right now that people are facing to, I think, even appear intelligent when they're talking about AI. Here's what I always boils down to. I can come from the recruitment perspective, but I'm sure this is the same across like marketing, sales. There are really not that many use cases. Like I've talked to, like I think the use cases are, customer service. You could argue you could have AI for customer service, but we've had that for years, right?
Right.
Like
Chatbots have been there's been
Right.
use of automation in that space for
So
a
much
long time.
hype.
how many times have you called into your bank and gone, I want to talk to a real person?
Press
We've
one.
had that, right? So like, what's the
Número
adaptation? Now you
dos.
can have more of a conversation with a robot. So you got that, but I think there's a pressure on people to try and integrate AI. I think the mentality at work right now or for companies is how do we get more done with less? And I think that's the pressure that people are feeling. Everybody feels like they could get laid off any minute.
Right.
Like
AI
I
is going
just
to take your
this
job.
thing on TikTok, I saw 4 videos of people recording their layoffs.
That is.
And so it's like we're still in that spot where nobody really feels that comfortable. And so I just think the pressure is it's not like a work from home issue. The pressure is literally nobody feels like their jobs are safe right now, and everybody's trying to stay ahead. I saw 2 videos of people saying that they've quit their jobs, or sorry, they've been laid off, and they've just quit looking for another job and decided to be content creators. So
Well, they look at you and they see how easy it is.
it's so easy. I recommend everybody quit their job right now.
Well,
Um,
there's
I
there's
wanna
courses for that.
I wanna harp on something that Joel said because I think it's really important. It's that AI right now, there's not many use cases for the individual employee. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I'll tell you what, when I was at Inbound with HubSpot 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, in the opening session, their CEO essentially was saying that right now, AI is used for acceleration. It's to speed up what's possible, it's to automate tasks, it works with you, and it's happening right now. However, in the future and where we're headed, and this might take a few years, it might take a few months, who knows how long it will take. Usually, when we're talking about corporate, things move a lot slower. Think of all the AI tools that are
Mm-hmm.
in the market now that will only see success in 5 to 8 years, probably. So that her point was happening next is that AI will be used for transformation to make the impossible possible, to reimagine complex goals and works for you. So I think we're still in this phase of AI being used to speed things up rather than to do things for you and to transform. And I don't think that we're currently ready for that transformation even amongst the workforce, because we don't really understand all the potential use cases, because we haven't seen all the products come to market or leveraged a lot of the potential products.
Yeah, it's still very early stage, and I keep saying it too. Is to use it and embrace it. Understand what you can do with it. Mess
Yeah.
around with it. Like in your spare time, go on Midjourney, go on Chat GPT, try things, try different tasks, go down the rabbit hole. That way you're informed and you're going to be ahead of the curve. So we could talk about this all day long, and
I
I'm sure we'll
know.
talk about it every
All
show.
day.
But Joel, let's get to your headline here because I think this one's pretty cool too. I want to chat about it.
Yeah, so this is something that I saw kind of roll out in real time because
Mhm.
I think I saw this post like 3 or 4 times because LinkedIn does that. Like if you engage with a post, it keeps showing you it. Good
Mm.
algorithm.
Yeah.
But the headline here for anyone who is listening says, "Desperate for a job, one woman's LinkedIn banner goes viral," and it's basically the story of Courtney Summer Myers, who, which I think this is just genius. Instead of having the open to work banner, she took
Brilliant.
the classic idea that people throw out there of the open to work banner is desperate. She actually made a desperate banner, and
Nailed
it's
it.
pink. It really stands out. And I believe she was going for like a marketing job or something in marketing, which is really smart. But she basically said she was on a job search for about 7 months, right? So
Mhm.
anyone who knows, and I've coined this phrase, the job market is brutal. So I was on a job search for 7 months and then just decided to do this kind of marketing endeavor with the open to work thing. And she said she's added over 20,000 connections
Wow.
and had a ton of conversations. So I think it's like a feel good story because it shows like sometimes just having some creativity, kind of showing, not telling, right? I tell salespeople all the time, if you want a job, call the VP of sales, cold call them, show them that you can do
Show.
the job. Show, don't tell, right? You're in marketing, do something great. Like show the work you've done, right? Get your portfolio out there. So I love that. I guess the downside of it is that people brought up when I posted about this a few times. The downside is in this market, to get noticed, you got to do something crazy like this, right?
Right, it's insane. It's like going back to that story of where the kid did a donut delivery to an office with his resume, right, to get in front of him. So I think creativity goes a long way, but I think it speaks more to what the sentiment is in the market right now.
Mm.
We've been in this loop for the last couple of years of insane amounts of layoffs, and there's so many good people on the market, and it's not just the C&D players getting let go. We talk about this in nauseam, how companies are using the RTO to quote unquote trim the fat, and it's desperation. You get to a point of desperation when you keep applying, and nothing happens. So kudos to her, in my opinion, for being creative, using her skills, and it's going to work for her. Look, she's getting engagement on there. Danielle, what are your thoughts?
I think as a marketer, marketing is all about appealing to emotion and making people feel something. And when you're on LinkedIn, right, there's a lot of job seekers who are going on LinkedIn. And if someone sees this banner, they probably feel it so freaking hard.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not voice that word of like, I'm desperate, but they also might be voicing it to, people in their family, their friends, their close circles, but they would never put it online.
Mm,
And I love that she did that. I think
yeah.
that takes an insane amount of courage to do. And I think, I hope that she gets a job from this.
I mean, I think it's much better than the lady who filmed her firing, which we have mixed thoughts on.
God.
So let's keep it rolling. Let's get to Danielle's headline.
All right. So Gen Z is currently conscious unbossing. Again, another term that TikTok has come up with, and essentially, what it is there's a moment of defiance happening. Many Gen Zers are getting promoted, quote unquote, but maybe a 5% pay increase in some cases, not at all. In the article, one of the guys said, you give them a coffee mug, say you've been promoted, read this book on Monday, you're a leader. So they don't spend, maybe, they don't spend time to develop these people. And suddenly, you walk in on Monday and you're in charge of another person. And so there's this lack of investment in leadership development. And we're dealing with a generation, honestly, that really values coaching and mentorship and guidance. This is something I spoke about a few weeks ago on my Gen Blend monthly episode, where we talked about career growth. Is your career on track? And in a lot of cases, I think that Gen Z feels like they want more coaching and guidance and mentorship than they have. And when we don't have it, we feel really disconnected from what leadership is or what it takes to be in that next level in a role in an organization. So I would say find out what people want, what their true purpose is, and help them get there. But in a lot of cases, I think that the sort of the leadership in organizations doesn't really know where career paths are going, and so maybe that they're a little bit weary to be that guide to younger generations. I'm not sure. I think that could be one of the things that's happening. But what do you guys think?
I'm gonna give my take here too. I think the whole pandemic and everything threw traditional in-office mentorship out the window, and it's been tough to have that human connection. There's something missing, and I'm now going to sound like the old man in the room here, but there was something about it when I was coming up in my career to be in the room, to be in those meetings, to watch firsthand when I was working in advertising, of watching these account folks command the room and do pitches and just watch their body language and be able to do coaching afterwards and kind of debrief on it. We're not getting that. We hang up the Zoom and we're done.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that there's communication gaps. I think that younger folks need to learn how to speak up when they need something. I think that sometimes there's a fear of speaking up, thinking that you might be saying that I'm not good enough at something. I might not be doing well. So I think we need to work on this dynamic and say it's okay and encouraged to ask for, hey, Danielle, you were awesome on that call. Could you just tell me a little bit of insight? What was your thought process in preparing for it? Actionable advice. Joel?
I think it kind of even goes back to that first article we were talking about, where I just think in general, if the bulk of people are feeling burned out and worried about their own job security, there's a lot going on in the world. You've got, inflation, you've got crazy high interest rates, there's wars going on left and right. We got an election, obviously. So I think there's a lot in people's minds. And so I think to your point, Danielle, if there is that need for mentorship and Gen Z wants to be mentored, I don't know whether you're going to get that if half of the workforce right now is just not even engaged, or they're worried about their own job.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think we talked about it last week too. We just have to realize that there's 4 generations in the workplace, and they're drastically different. Boomers are not they're going to look at Gen Z like their grandkids, right? And so when you look at those differences, I think it's stepping back and looking at, okay, do we need to switch the way that we're doing things? Do we need to change? Do we need to be more intentional? And I think to Adam's point too, that intention, you have to be intentional. And I think it's easier to ask when you're in an office. I know how awkward it is when you got to Slack someone, when you've got to reach out and you've got to admit, hey, I don't know. So I think it's on companies as well. It's on leadership. It's on creating these cultures. And I don't actually think that the answer is just slapping everybody back into the office, because I think some of these things are just deeper, and they're things that company leadership actually has to work out. I know when I started in the workplace, one of the things that was great was we got assigned mentors.
Like a buddy.
Yeah, and it was they took us out to lunch. I remember going out to lunch with my mentor, and he's just like, dude, just relax. Take your time with this.
That's
really
part
get
of
to know the system. I love that. That was really, really helpful.
That's part of culture, though, right? And how much culture was lost. And listen, culture isn't necessarily a physical thing. It's not the beer pong and the cold brew on tap, but there is something about culture that is physical, to Joel's point, right? It's the ability to go out for those and go out for those coffee breaks. And I remember too, there was times when I was struggling at certain points in my career, and I had mentors and other folks in the office like, hey, let's go out for a quick walk and have a coffee and talk about what's going on right now, right? Like that's a little bit harder because you have to make the effort and the initiative to say, hey Joel, let's text, hey Joel, you have a few minutes to jump on a call? Like there's an extra step involved there. No, returning to the office is not going to solve that. It's going to get solved by leadership taking the reins and making it okay to have that type of open conversations and not be
Do you
shunned
think this
upon.
is just a corporate thing, or do you just think this is like our society?
I think it's
We are
society
kinda,
right now, man. I think
I think it's
I think
every
so too.
I think
company.
everyone's hiding behind social media. Everyone's hiding behind emails. It's turned into a passive aggressive society from the pandemic, worse than ever.
I do think, going back to the AI conversation, AI could be really helpful here, right? And talking about doing it for you, a practical application of AI is to say, oh, you're working with X leader on this project. Would it be helpful to schedule a one-on-one meeting with them to talk through things and to get some guidance? Oh, here are some questions to prep you for that meeting. Like,
I
this
could
is
get
the
behind that.
stuff that AI could be helping to develop people in a very active way. And to you guys' point, like, yes, I understand that there's this need for in-person connection and whatnot. That's also all you know. It's not
Mm,
all you know, but it's the way
yeah.
that you're familiar with getting that type of mentorship. And I think that it is possible in a remote first environment. I've had it before, but I will say it has to be incredibly intentional, and you have to have a culture that actually prioritizes the development of their people.
Joel, what are we seeing in the comments here? I think some good
Yeah, I was
folks
gonna
coming
say,
in.
Jessica just said, businesses, or she said, or are businesses prioritizing profits over people? They're not investing in their people through development, which I
Which is
mean,
what people leave.
look, L&D was huge during right at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody needed content to onboard people virtually. But now, like, training is on the low totem pole now of priorities for
It's
companies.
insane.
It's all about cutting people and bringing in tools that can automate what can be done. So to Jessica's point, that is, I mean, that is what's happening. Like, there's been a prioritization of profits, and obviously we all know companies are about driving profit, and that's business. Nothing inherently wrong with that. But when people are prioritized below profits, I think that's when you see the issues. Definitely seems like what's happening.
I mean,
And
no wonder Gen Z is consciously unbossing. They come into the workforce and they're expected to know the tools. They're expected to know how things work. They're expected to know this and this and that without actual exposure, to Adam's point, to the room that it's happening in.
Hmm. Well, let's
Nuts.
let's 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 put a pin in this one because I think that we could literally make this a conversation for hours on here, and I think we're going to keep talking in some way, shape, or form about this because that's what happened here. But before we continue that conversation, let's get to Clark.
Clarky.
What is up? I love. How we doing? Not much. Do a hot 100 with me, yours truly, Clark Wilcox. We're talking about today. I love the topic you guys were just talking about because I am going to talk about surviving and thriving in recruiting, which I can already see the faces. This is going to be fun. The first piece of it, I would say, is finding your tribe, the importance of community. Now, I came from a bigger firm, Aerotech, and I already had our division. I had a great manager. It was kind of built in for me when I arrived, and I got a ton of support. But there's a lot of recruiters out there. I see, one man or woman HR, TA departments, or solo recruiters, or people, smaller agencies where they're not getting the support or the guidance. To Danielle, to your point, and they feel alone. They feel isolated, and I think finding your community and recruiting people you can, of course, commiserate with, but build and learn from, finding those high performers, I think is so key. It's one of the biggest benefits of the digital recruiter program. I hear it all the time from solo and founders and maybe even producers that don't feel heard at their own company. They finally have like an outlet to improve and get better. And I think that's huge in recruiting. You have to, you're going to go crazy if you're on an island in this industry. The second thing in terms of surviving and thriving is figure out what you can automate, figure out what you can templatize. I see so many people just sticking to the old ways. Oh, I got to be personalized. I got to be super customized, and not really challenging themselves to figure out what can you automate and what really requires a human touch, right? And I think that's kind of the rule, is automate until it really needs a human touch. And one of the best ways to do this, I've talked about it on a few segments, is be really intentional with your strategy, your outreach. If you're a construction recruiter and you connect with like say an estimator, that's going to make sense. If you're a construction recruiter and you're connecting with someone in financial services, it might not be relevant, right? So don't spray and pray. Really be intentional and figure out what you can automate, templatize, for interview prep or whatever that looks like, just to kind of speed up your task so you have more time for the call, that human touch. That's the recruiters that get ahead, that are proactive with that stuff, that do the work on the front end. And then the third thing I'm going to say is just let it go, right? People have their own things going on. You can't take things personally in recruiting. I tell people, like, we're the matchmaker. We have to let the hiring manager or the candidate kind of do their things. People are going to be rude. They're going to lie. They're going to change their mind. They're going to ghost. That's just part of the gig. You have to figure out a way to internalize. It goes back to point number one of just having that community. You have to figure out how to process it, deal with it, say what you got to say, and then move on. Just kind of like a quarterback throwing an interception, right? They got to forget about it on the next play. So those are the three things. Yeah, I guess. Gentlemen and lady, I want to hear what you guys got. Yeah.
That's a great analogy. And I learned that early on in recruiting too. And my mentor, Tom Hall, give a shout out to Tom Hall. He says, if you lose a deal, something goes south, be upset for that day. Think about what happened, break it down, try not to do it again. And when you wake up tomorrow morning, it's a new day. It's over. It's gone. The deal is gone. You cannot just have it in your head. What's the Ted Lasso thing? Be a goldfish, right? Just be a goldfish and move on. That's what recruiting is. Recruiting is activity, activity, activity. It's a numbers game. It's a funnel. But do it smarter, do it better, and learn from your mistakes.
You have to learn from it and then move on at the same time, right? Like, you can't forget ever happened. You can't let it repeat itself. But you got to learn, okay, how do I get better? And then move on. Absolutely.
Joel, what lesson have you learned recently as you venture back into more recruiting these days?
Look, I think it's being able to, like, I'm doing a lot of business development right now, right? And this is not like the hottest market for business development with recruitment. But I posted about it today. Like, just follow up is really key. Really being intentional about connecting with people, and then listening to, like, what are the actual problems of the business, and can I be flexible to provide solutions? One thing that I see is just really tough for recruiters, and I talked to a staffing leader actually, because I'm looking at potentially doing some staffing as well. She said one of the things she noticed is in coaching recruitment leaders is there's such a habit of not changing and just doing things like you said,
old habits,
sticking with things. And I just think you have to be able to adapt to where the market is. And if contingent, if you haven't done contingent for 10 years, but that's all the market's looking for, then guess what? Maybe that's what you have to take on. Maybe nobody wants to pay the big fees. So then looking at, like, other hourly models I can do. So I think being flexible and understanding that there's fluidity in the solutions that you can provide is key, and knowing how to have conversations that aren't just scripted, but they're conversations that are actually uncovering needs is huge. And so I think that that's something really key, and just wanting to make genuine connection to people and realizing that there's always a short term and there's always a long-term game. And I think that the recruiters that grasp a hold of the long-term game through relationships, they're the ones that last.
There you
just
go.
lacking on that short term, it's just going to be a hamster wheel.
I mean, I got to tell you this, and I spoke about it ad nauseum too. 2023 for me, like most recruiters, was the worst year in my entire business. In the 7 years of my entire business, I was down almost 70% year over year, and it wasn't because I'm not a good recruiter. It wasn't because I'm not good at business development. It was market conditions. When companies are letting people go, they certainly don't need an external recruiter, and their internal recruiters are gone. But what got me through and back on track in 2024 were my long-term relationships, because I did a good job for previous clients. I have a good reputation, and I was able to reach back out and got some inbound at the beginning of this year that set me up for success this year. So it's a long game, and just think of it that way.
I love that.
Good stuff.
Yeah, Clark. What else? What else is
and memes? Don't forget memes.
It was just a mic drop, so I was kind of letting it sit there. But
Joel puts the me in memes. Believe me.
I'm telling you, like, you got to have a sense of humor if you're a recruiter.
Yeah.
You gotta
And so
let
this
shit
is
off. You
this is
gotta laugh it
why
off.
I know, like, we were talking before the show, Adam's like, "Dude, all you do is repost the memes." But look, one of the biggest comments I get from talent leaders, these are
Yes, you did
executives,
say that.
they're like, "Man, your content, like, you're saying stuff that, like, we can't say." And I'm like, "It's because having a sense of humor is key because
It
people are
is.
just weird." Like, how many times have you thought a deal was gonna go through, and then it's the last moment something crazy happens, and
Oh,
it's like all you
man.
can do at that point, well, I guess there's 2 things you can do.
Just
You can
laugh.
dwell on it, or you can just see the humor and go, "Look, that's what being a recruiter is all about."
Because it's the human. Because we're dealing with humans. We're in the human business, right? Not human trafficking, but we're in the human business. And like shit happens and life happens, and we could spend hours just telling crazy recruiting stories of deals going to crap, right? Like, I had one situation real quick. I had a creative director. The offer was there. She was about to sign it. It was in person in New York, and she was supposed to start on a Monday. And she calls me that her boyfriend proposed to her. And she said yes, and now she's got to move to Seattle because he works for Microsoft, and she can't take the job. And I'm just like, I'm so happy for you, but I'm not for that $30,000 fee that I just lost.
Yeah.
There's nothing you could do but laugh about it and cry. But that's life, and that's
Rock
recruiting.
yourself to sleep.
But if you stay with it, I'm sure you've had wins that have kind of fallen in your lap too, right?
Yes.
And it kind of goes both ways. And I think one of the things I'll add is my friend, Coach Keely Flood, he's a coach in our program, talks about celebrate the small wins, right? The little things that happen. If you just celebrate the big placements as they come, right? You got to celebrate the small wins and that steady improvement that you're making, or else, it's none of this is going to be fun. And as
I
you said, you
woke
got to
up
have a sense of
today.
humor about it.
That's my win. I woke up
It,
today.
it is a win. Well, Clark, we appreciate you. This is a fantastic
Appreciate you.
segment. Where could folks find you? Where could they learn more about Digital Recruiter?
digitalrecruiter.io. Check me out on LinkedIn, Clark Wilcox. Connect with me. We got the podcast. We got the Sunday night newsletter, a bunch of free stuff, content. You can learn more and
Clark is the
see what
man.
we do.
Check it out. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Tom.
Clark. Let's get to the global report. Let's bring on our friends at Smart Recruiters. We have a special guest today. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome. Where on this fine planet are we speaking with you today?
Oh, don't be jealous, but I live in beautiful, sunny San Diego. Although this morning it's not so sunny. So,
Are you a Padres fan?
you kind of have to be. It's the only sports
Mm.
team left down here. But I'm a soccer girl, so we have our San Diego Wave as well.
Ah, good stuff there. Well, welcome to the show here. Thank you for filling in for Alin, and she's been a consistent guest here, and we love our friends over at Smart Recruiters. And I got something in the mail the other day. I wasn't really expecting it. This box comes, and I open it up, and it's an incredible pair of binoculars. Well, you call it a pair of binoculars if it's still one binocular, but it's two. I don't know. These binoculars come, they're incredible, but I don't know what I'm looking for.
Well,
Is there something out there that I should maybe keep an eye on in the sky?
I mean, the beautiful thing about binoculars is it goes beyond the sky, right? To look to the space. So, yeah, I think you should start looking up, but maybe specifically on October 16th, start looking into the sky and see what might drop to Earth. Exciting stuff.
Who knows? So what do you do over there for Smart Recruiters?
Oh man, what don't I
What
do?
don't you do?
I've been here for 10 years, Adam, and during that time I've had 8 different roles. So maybe Swiss Army knife, but right now I lead our global solutions consulting team. So work with all of our prospects on solutioning to ensure we have a partnership that lasts forever and is successful.
Well, you have your ear to the ground, real time, working directly with clients, seeing out there. What is that consistent problem you hear that you guys are working on a solution for?
I mean, I don't think it's changed over time if I'm being simplistic. It's just making our users, such as recruiters, hiring managers, store managers in the decentralized space, shoulders lighter, right? In the spirit of efficiency, in the spirit of engagement. I mean, those are the magic words that we continuously hear.
But always coming up with new solutions. And I think that's one of the things we're going to be looking to the sky for, some new ways to make recruiters' jobs easier, more efficient, to put the human back into recruiting. But before we put the human back into recruiting, we have to talk about the buzzword. And it's more than a buzzword. It really is things. I always like to, when I talk to folks like yourselves, is understand what is the data, where is it coming from, and how are we going to use it in an ethical way? What's your take?
Oh, you're talking my language. I mean, data drives decisions, right? And I think in today's world, one thing that I've been working with my team and our prospects on is really educating them on AI and the difference between a co-pilot and an agent, right?
Well, let's break that down. I didn't mean to cut you off there. For everyone out there, let's get a little bit basic here, and I want to explain the difference between an agent and a co-pilot, please.
Yes, yes. So the easiest way I think about it, and I again like to make things very simple, as you think about a co-pilot, this is your assistant, right? They help you to drive to a decision. Whereas an agent is more doing some of that lifting for you. I wouldn't say all of it, but more the mundane tasks that they know your behavior and they can basically help you to say, hey, I've done this for you, or it looks like you've done this 3 times in the past. Should I go ahead and do this again? And so in the world of AI, I think there's a big difference and there's lots of opportunity, and both drive efficiency. But I think one gets us to a place where, again, users' shoulders are a lot lighter. And so that's the exciting part.
Are we getting to a point, and I spoke about this in a post earlier this week, where let's get into the trenches of job seekers versus companies, and we'll use enterprise level companies for this point here, where the technology on both sides is coming to a point where it's just bot versus bot, AI versus AI, and they're optimized, candidates are optimizing, companies are optimizing, and we're losing touch of what the real skills are, what the job needs are, and the bots are just trying to optimize to get that candidate in or get them out.
Yeah, this is the difficult part, right? And I think where Smart Recruiters is coming back to is imagine a world where you automate, make the entire process efficient, but then plug in the points where the human touch is mandatory or necessary, right? And I think for job seekers as well, I mean, I'm old school. I still like to dial 0 and talk to an operator. But I think it's important that they find those components where they're allowed to be vulnerable, allowed to be themselves, right? Like, let's imagine a world where you have the option of doing a video to submit your application versus just uploading your resume.
It's so funny you say that too, because I've been having a lot of conversations too around the video part, and we're coming back, in my opinion, back to this more human side where you're going to have to talk to a human and presenting yourself on video. And there's biases, inherent biases there, and there's, neurodivergent and other disabilities that come into play there. But if we're kind of rolling this up to the point of what the point is that it's human. Now, yes, you could use AI in video. There are tools to see if you're using AI in video. You could use tools to create your script to answer that. But at the end of the day, you're still seeing a person there. The other point around this is the ethical use of AI, and we're starting to see regulations out there in the government. What are the things that you're seeing that you see going in a good direction, or things that might be a little bit too big brother?
Yeah. So I come from Deloitte. So my background is change management, human capital, and some of the big fours like Deloitte, KPMG, Accenture, et cetera, are putting out a lot around ethical, responsible AI.
What does that mean for the layperson?
I would say it's 2 parts, right? I think one, it's that you are doing your due diligence to look into the AI that you're using to make sure they're being responsible, right? Security, data privacy, et cetera. And 2 is that you're asking the right questions, but also communicating to your job seekers that you're using these tools, right? It's important for there to be transparency in this process, so that everyone feels like they're trusting and engaging in a responsible manner.
Let's get into change management in HR. The reports out there now are talking about rapid global change. What are you seeing? What are these key headlines?
I mean, let's just talk about this hybrid or remote first world. Change management encompasses communication, training, and just being able to manage all the different types of individuals, stakeholders, et cetera, through any journey. And at times, I think organizations on average are going through 3 major changes at a time. That's a lot. That's a lot. And then you take into consideration your external factors, your personal life, what's going on around that. Like, it is just continuous. And so I think, I heard you guys talking earlier, like adapting, being open, allowing yourself to respond to all the feels, but then being positive in seeing the optimism, right? Like, how is this going to benefit me? How is this going to benefit my organization, right? I mean, Winston 3.0, Smart Recruiters 3.0, this is a big change. It's very exciting, but I would be remiss if I didn't have a moment to say, wait, what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing and why? I mean, I think we have to hit the rewind button and go back to March 2020, the start of the pandemic. There were companies that were fully remote. One of my clients, they're great. They were fully remote, so they had that culture. They had the workflow in place. But the majority of companies, they were just throwing a curveball. They've had their ways for years. They had their processes, and it goes back to the leadership and their adaptability. And that's when you have to be a real leader. How are we going to lead through change? How are we going to lead through uncertainty? And how are we going to say, hey, listen, what we did before is not going to work right now, and we have to rewrite the playbook. And we've seen companies thrive in this space and innovate and really dig into their culture and values, and other companies fail and process paralysis, and they get stuck in the old ways. And we're seeing the results now: lower profits, companies going under. And it's sad. And especially when it comes to the recruiting process, right? The old recruiting process, candidates would come on site for interviews. They would see the office. They would get to meet people. And that playbook is out the window, and you have to change it all. What are some of the ways with the tools with smart recruiters and this thing we're looking up in the sky for? How's that going to help move the new process forward to be more efficient, as we said before, bring some of that human element back?
Yeah. So, without saying too much, I think first and foremost, with any change in these organizations, there needs to be a component of listening, right? You need to allow, whether it's job seekers, employees, the opportunity to have a therapy session and just talk about why. When it comes to jobs, why do you want this job? Why do you think you're the right person for this job? And I think there can be a prompt, but it's more allowing, again, coming back to vulnerability, being themselves, right? And whether you have an AI tool to look at that and, lie detector test, personality, et cetera, go for it. But I think at the end of the day, it's responding with that as well. And so again, as you think about going through this process, yes, there'll be the components of efficiency and agents, co-pilots really allowing you to do that efficiently by looking at the data. But then there will be the elements of humanizing this, right? Imagine a world where you extend an offer with a video from your new hiring manager. I mean, that is exciting. Forget about waiting till onboarding, right? Like, this is your first impression. Let's make it a good one. Let's make it right. Let's get people excited again. And I think that's where those human elements really bring us back to excitement.
And it comes back to, HR's role as being a change leader, right? Like the roles and responsibility are changing of HR. And HR, let's be clear, I'm going to say this a million times, HR is not TA. HR is not recruiting. They may work together, they cross over, but there's different, and companies need to separate that. But HR really sometimes are the gatekeepers of culture and process and leading the way in tech adoption. So in my opinion, again, HR needs to have a seat at the leadership table. It's not an afterthought. And you've been in consulting for a long time. The problem, and keep me straight on this one, is a lot of times companies don't look at HR or TA as a profit center. They look at it as as a resource, as an admin, but they're completely off on that because your people are your resource.
Yes. I think there is a lot of organizations that look as HR to be their fixer, reactive, right? Come fix this, versus, to your point, bringing them to the table and allowing them to help the organization think differently, right? People, process, technology. Well, we can't just assume we know everything about the people or what they're feeling, especially when you're at that executive level. What are those individuals doing at those lower levels? How are they feeling? And that is, I think, the HR team's role to really not only allow for that feedback mechanism, but also be those resources to listen.
So we talk about this concept of future proofing, and it's kind of one of these things now where the future is now, and we had to get into it much quicker than we wanted to. But what are some examples of how HR could really foster this sense of resilience and being able to adapt and just ensuring long-term success?
I mean, first and foremost, AI is not going away, right? This isn't like a trend of the past. This is something that whether your organizations, individuals, need to adopt, educate on, and truly embrace to an extent. But I think future proofing is really focusing on people, retention, and really making sure you have the right people in the right places, but allowing to support them and grow them versus just continuing to execute. I heard around, numbers. Don't get me wrong, numbers are important. Meeting those numbers are very important to thrive, but you have to remind yourself of how much, turnover cost.
Attrition.
What does it cost to bring in new individuals? So I think there's something to that. And I'm totally going to put a plug in, but I'm very proud of Smart Recruiters for the corporate culture. I've been here for 10 years. There's a number of people that have been here 5+ years. And so I feel like we're doing something right.
Well, let's talk about one of your top boomerang employees, Rebecca Carr, an opportunity to sit down with her at HR Tech. And I felt that leadership energy. and I felt that direction, and I was like, this is a good thing, the way she talked about the product, but more importantly, the way she talked about the people. And she interwove that. She was former head of product too, so she really understands how to combine the leadership element, the people element, and the product element. So that is some good stuff over there at Smart Recruiters. But there's something else cooking, right? When we were at HR Tech, there was a lot of mystery. There was a lot of this kind of shrouded, clandestine conversations out there about looking up to the sky that something big is coming, and we should be watching for something on October 16th. What alpha could you give us here, Nicole?
I mean, it'd be really great to be in Paris with Rebecca, if I'm being honest, at Unleashed, Yeah, just look, Rebecca is amazing. She hired me, and so we have a long-term
There you
relationship.
go.
Coming from product to CEO, she's going to be successful, bottom line. Like, there is no doubt. And I think that, to your point, like, that element you feel is really where everyone is on board, and we are going 1,000 miles per hour, and we're okay with it, right? It's exciting, it's fun, and I think that's where you also see that blast from the sky on October
Mm-hmm.
15th,
Well,
maybe an eye peeking out, but Smart Recruiters 3.0 is here.
all right. Well, we're gonna keep an eye on that, and we're gonna check out this watch party on the 16th. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us, and I think there's something for us to look out for right now. That was awesome. That was
That was
awesome.
very cool.
Well, Nicole, we want to thank you so much. Everyone, check out that QR code right there. Click it. We'll keep it up there for a minute. Wait, Danielle, what are you seeing? You seeing anything out there? Are you seeing a storm front
waiting.
coming?
I'm
Are you seeing a
seeing
storm front?
the
Can you see
hurricane-
anything through the clouds in the hurricane in South Florida?
underway.
I love it, Danielle. Keep looking. Awesome.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to take a lens roll anytime. Come back and join us, and we appreciate you. Smart Recruiters, everyone, check it out. Click on that QR
Bye,
code.
everyone.
Bye.
All right.
We've got Lydia in the house. Hi.
Hello.
We did get to meet at
did.
HR Tech very briefly, but you were
Yes.
with Bennett, and shout out Bennett. We love him. He was one of my first marketer friends in HR
No.
Tech. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's
100%
amazing.
during the pandemic. Yeah.
Very, very small circle once you get into it.
Crazily small, crazily small. How are you? How have you been coming down from HR Tech? Because it took me a few weeks to recover.
So I don't know how people do it. Right after HR Tech, I went to People Analytics World in New York.
Wow.
And it was just one of those, like, if the last day of HR Tech felt zombifying to you, if you will, going through that, followed by People Analytics World, I woke up Monday morning, so yesterday, and I was like, oh, why am I so tired? What is this? Why am I so foggy? Like, what day is it? What life am I living? How do people do this for like 3-4 conferences back to back?
Nuts, absolutely nuts. Honestly, sometimes I take Mondays as a self-care day, at least in the morning, and then in the afternoon I find a surge of energy to like do, my content stuff. I usually do content creation in the afternoons on Monday. And I understand you're also a content creator. So we didn't get to talk about this at HR Tech, but for the people who might not know you, can you give us like a 30-second, a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do?
Yes. So Lydia Wu, been kicking around HR Tech for about 15 years at this point. Started in consulting, the most typical way anyone can start their career. Went into industry to purchase HR Tech and really plan HR Tech strategy. Realized that between buyers, vendors, consultants, and investors in this space, some of us are hanging on the FM radio channels, others are hanging on the AM radio channel, and we got a few in the skies in the like Sirius XM radio channels. And we're actually all headed in the same direction, except we forgot to talk the same language. So that's actually how whoops did I think that out loud, sarcastically, came about, because a lot of times I talk to people and they would have ideas and thoughts. And I was like, did you guys connect? They're like, oh no, I didn't want to offend them, or I didn't want to share that. I'm like, okay, yeah, we should probably start talking a lot more frequently than we are as an industry.
Yes, 100%. Wow. So what is the brand?
So what the brand is started out as a LinkedIn blog. I'm still in what I call a baby influencer stage. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're an influencer." I'm no, like a baby influencer. Still trying to
It's
figure my
it,
stuff
it's
out.
like a micro influencer.
Exactly, exactly.
Love
You get
that.
it. So we are still on LinkedIn, where the content is a lot more corporate appropriate. Even though once in a
Mhm.
way I get DMs telling me I loved your stuff, I can't like it because people in my company might see.
Yeah, I get
So
that too.
for the folks, we're now moving over to Instagram, where we're going to get a lot more of the real talks, and hopefully, no one from your company is on your Instagram, because otherwise, we would need to have a different
Smart.
conversation altogether. And we're also moving over to YouTube as well, because I think a lot of times when people see demos, it's under a lot of secrecy, it's under a lot of scripted
Mm,
aspects. They don't see a real person using it. And my take is I would never look at tech or sort of like talk about the tech that I wouldn't personally use myself. So hopefully, the YouTube channel can kind of give a little more perspective in terms of what is the difference between a Microsoft Copilot versus a Chat GPT,
mm.
and how does all of that crank through data? Do they even analyze Excel spreadsheets? Can you even upload those type of things? So it's kind of demystifying a lot of this scary stuff, if you will, in
Right.
the industry. So.
Right. And given I think that the average company uses around 120 tools, I think is the stat. I think that there's never been a better time for this type of curation, and letting the veil down behind what it's actually like to use a lot of these products, because a lot of products don't give you a free trial,
For
right?
sure. And you know what I find really interesting? I think it's picking up, or like people are starting to catch on to it. Individuals, especially those work in HR, are more likely to swipe their credit cards on a $120 per year personal subscription to something than they are
Wow.
to run a enterprise contract through the entire procurement, IT, and everything ecosystem. So I
Wow.
think we're going to see a lot more of like individually curated tool sets in the ecosystem very soon, as opposed to like giant enterprise contracts that we've been seeing over the last little bit.
So the way that we're buying is actually changing drastically.
It feels like it. Honestly, just go around your circles and ask how many people have purchased Canva on their own, or how many people have
Yeah.
purchased GPT on their own. Like, I was genuinely surprised when I started asking this question.
Right. Well, you bring up a good point too, because I think a lot of us have a personal tech stack. I've written about this on LinkedIn before and I still get feedback about the posts that I've written about my personal tech stack. And even when I go to a company, I kind of come with this, desire, and I say it out loud. Hey, I use these tools. These are the tools I'm comfortable with using. They enable me to do my job the best. If you're not willing to pay for them, I will, right? Like, I don't
Exactly.
outright say that part, right? I see if they're going to pay for it. And then I
Context, right?
say to myself, I'm just going to pay for it myself, right? And then I ask, maybe it's
Exactly.
my learning and development budget, maybe it's something else. But I think, like, this notion of coming to a company and not settling for less, right, is
Yeah.
actually comes out in the tools that we use.
And I think even you're seeing it in the enterprise level. So genuinely, for anyone that's listening right now, take a look at the laptops your executive team is using, and take a look at the laptops that they're giving you. I would bet
Mm,
you're going to see a couple Macs at the executive level. And that, I think, is the most subtle way of the personal tech stack, if you will, where it's kind of like if you have the option, you are going to go for something different because you're more comfortable using it, and it's just more organic once you kind of figure out how the
right,
ecosystem works.
right. So more on this sort of like noticing the differences within your company. Let's say you are using a PC and you want a Mac. What does that conversation look like?
Internal to the company, depending on the level you are and the department you function in, and how many besties you've bought coffee for in IT, I think it
Mm,
looks realistically, it looks very different, right? Because I don't think a lot of folks entering the workforce understand that your department's tech budget is set out like at the beginning of the year, and maybe 6 months before the beginning of the year even started. And chances are, when budget cuts start, it starts with a tech budget. So it's like, oh, instead of
mm,
like giving someone a new laptop every 3 years, maybe we can get them to stretch a little bit more. Maybe we can just get them to make it work a little bit longer. So you end up with, I would say slightly antiquated technology, especially compared to a new arrival in the organization or a new hire in the organization, just because of IT sort of physical asset strategy in most enterprises. And that's why I think you see that weird switch over between, like, I'm personally on a Mac and the Apple ecosystem, but at work I have to be on Windows and PC, and life is just not switching over very well.
Right. And so we were just talking about this whole generational kind of the dynamics. And one of the things that I find that comes up a lot is that the younger generation is like afraid to ask for things, to ask for help, to ask for advice, to ask, for maybe a Mac instead of a PC. What's your advice to those younger professionals who might be wanting to be, aligned with the newest technology and all of that? Like, what's your advice to them for what, if they want to ask for more?
For sure. So I think a couple things. Number one, I used to be you, so we've all gone through it to be able to have the advice on the other side of it.
Right.
Number two, I think it's like pick your context, right? Like, don't be that, it's not even generational, just don't be that obnoxious person in the room when the timing and everything else in the broader environmental context doesn't look right. And you're like, yeah, I want the most expensive thing. Can you get that for me? Don't do that. That's a really bad idea across the board, regardless of generation. The third thing you got to keep in mind is that the worst anyone can tell you is no, regardless if it's a salary increase, regardless if it's a new equipment, regardless if it's a new idea. And the moment they say no, like, you get a lot more insight in terms of what their boundaries are. Are you philosophically aligned from a directional perspective? Are you strategically aligned? You get a lot more from that no than you would normally get. So either way you win, even if the answer is a no. And I think last but not least, like, this doesn't sound really, really bad, but bear with me. I think especially for women in the workforce, you almost have to come in with a I do deserve this attitude to kind of pump yourself up a little bit and then be able to go and make the ask. Because
Love
I think
it.
a lot of times, just because of the way we're socialized and everything else, we're like, okay, maybe this is the most they can do. Maybe we'll just settle for it. But like, the more you ask the question, the more no's you get and the more boundaries you push, you kind of start to learn a different way of navigating the corporate world a little bit. That's fortunate or fortunately not taught in schools effectively.
Right. And I think one of the things that helped me at, in previous roles was to seek mentorship and guidance outside of my company from someone who has been, more in the corporate world, because I've been in startups for most of my career,
Mm-hmm.
and to really help you to navigate a lot of these situations that you might not have found yourself in previously. So finding
Yeah.
those external mentors as well. What is one thing you'd like to leave our audience with right now?
Right now, I think trust but verify is the principle I would leave everyone with. I think it applies to HR technology, especially in this like rapid rise of AI across the ecosystem. Trust what your vendors are selling you, but verify and ask the right questions. It applies to careers. Trust what your mentorship, your management team, and everyone is telling you. But to your point earlier, verify. Seek another alternative opinion at least. And at least that way you have a point of comparison and you know for a fact that you can make the judgment as opposed to kind of getting influenced left, right, and center across the board.
I love that. It's like seek a second opinion, like with doctors,
Exactly.
before you get surgery. All right. Thank you so much, Lydia. It was such a pleasure to see you again, and hopefully I run into you at another conference soon.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. Bye.
Well, that was awesome. Lydia was incredible. I had an opportunity to interview her at HR Tech, thanks to our friends over at Higher Road. And thanks to our friends, ERIN, for making this show possible. ERIN, let's give a shout out. Let's give a shout out to ERIN. If you guys are not familiar with ERIN, ERIN is again. ERIN is the premier employee. I feel like when Howard Stern like just burps into the microphone, but I'm not going to do that. But ERIN is a premier employee referral and internal mobility software platform, and ERIN increases employee referral hires for non-desk and corporate employees by 5x and decreases turnover by 50%. You could also check out ERIN 5.0 with new features designed to make finding the right job instantaneous, submitting a referral as simple as sending a text, chat, or Slack, and deliver success metrics you need to operate a world-class employee referral program. So check out ERIN if you want to take your employee retention to the next level. And if you want some of this swag that we have so much swag from ERIN, we can't take it. And maybe you could just put a little purple square down in the chat and you'll find some swag coming in your direction. So get a sloth of your own. Head over to purpleacorn.io/free for more. ERIN, Mike, and the team, thank you for supporting the HR Morning Show.
Yeah.
Joel's polls. Hit us, Joel.
I'm on stage.
Now, gentlemen, please welcome Joel to the stage. Get those singles out and be generous.
Woo! Look. We did a good. I did a good poll this last week, and for anyone who is not watching this but listening, shout out to Spotify and iTunes. Is the job market heating up? And what really spurred this poll on was I saw an article that said there was a September surge. It was more of a September splurge. Or now we're going to be on the October purge.
Oh.
Because we're just on the verge. But is the job market
the realist rapper recruiter? Look out,
yo. But I said we're in the final quarter of 2024, which blows my mind.
Crazy,
it's
right?
really easy for me to keep track of time because my kid was born on January 2nd. But I told people, I just asked the question, is your company hiring? I've done this poll in the past, and what I will say is that the last 3 times I've done this poll, it's been like 60% of people have said they're hiring and 40% have said no. So prediction here, do you think that's gone up or you think that's gone down?
I think up.
Oh, you're optimistic.
Yeah, I'm going to say down. I'm a cynic.
You're Simon Sinek.
Yes.
It's crazy that's his last name. All right, anyway, yeah, I know. Anyway, let's see the result here. Is your company hiring? It went down. Look, since then we've had, so right there it's 2,000 votes. We've had, I think we're at 2,200 votes. This is at almost 50,000 impressions on there. So that's a good base, and we've seen 54% of people are still saying that their company's hiring. A lot of people, a lot of agency recruiters in there, so you got to always keep in mind they're always hiring. But look, it's still really tough, right? And I don't see this changing in the near future. So Danielle, what are your thoughts? You think we're going to see a big shift after the election?
I think it's tough to know what's going to happen exactly, but yes, I do think that there's going to be a big shift after the election. I think there's going to be a shift in a lot of things. I think the stock market's going to shift. I think the hiring landscape's going to shift. I did feel like the job market was heating up. I recorded a video 2 weeks ago that I was going to post, but then I didn't post it. And maybe that's why. Maybe my intuition was saying that's actually false. But I am preparing a free guide for what to do in this lull time between when when you're preparing and when you land the role. So I think that I'm excited to see how things shake up. I think a lot of companies are probably determining their budget, finalizing their budget for next year, and I'm kind of optimistic that they're going to try to make those like maybe like more dynamic hires. I'm
Flash
optimistic about
hires.
more dynamic,
Personality
hires.
hires.
Yeah, personality hires all the way.
Adam, what are you seeing out there?
Well, but this is real. I think that there's companies that have it's two different fold. They have budgets, they have open roles, and we're trying to fill them because there's money on the table right now in 2024. I have companies that are hiring. I have other companies that we kind of hit this weird thing in recruiting where it comes to like Thanksgiving, where it's we've got to fill this role by Thanksgiving because if we hire somebody after Thanksgiving, they're not going to start till after the new year. Right? There's holidays, there's things evolve. So we want to try to get these hires in and started before the new year. There's also a lot of companies that say, all right, we're just going to park this and we're going to pick up the search in the new year. There's also a lot of uncertainty out there, what's going on with the global, hotbed of wars and elections and all this other stuff. So I think it's I don't know. I think there's a lot of wait and see out there in the marketplace. Luckily for me, I have a number of clients that are hiring, and you can check out all of our open roles at nhptalentgroup.com. For anyone out there, seriously, we have open roles in marketing, media, and advertising. Not just a plug. There's jobs out there. There's jobs that I don't get paid for that I'm promoting. So seriously, folks, check that out over there. There's certainly some opportunities.
And look, this poll, I think, it's always hard, right, in a LinkedIn poll to kind of accurately ask.
It's a small sample set too. It's not even a sample set of decision makers too. It's opinion versus fact.
Yeah, and look, it's not, is your company hiring for growth even? I just talked to someone yesterday who's leading talent at a company, and they said that they're actually getting a lot of people from Amazon right now applying at that company, because of the return to office, getting people from Walmart. So, and they're hiring. It's just, from most of what I'm hearing, most people aren't hiring at the volume that they were.
Correct.
But what's also interesting is, the September surge numbers came in, and it said 254,000 jobs were added this month. But this is the same.
Those numbers are not accurate. I think
they're never accurate. This is why I don't understand. Are
they agricultural? Are they blue collar? Are they white collar? Are they where are these?
It's like usually government, construction, and hospitality. But the worst thing about this is how they then make decisions on whether or not interest rates go down. Bullshit. So now what they're saying is, well, we had a really great September surge. Interest rates may not go down. And it's like, we want the interest rates to go down. So but I don't understand why this, what is it? The Labor Bureau statistics, they've admitted last month that they've been off
everything
every
was
month,
wrong.
but everybody still anticipate. And I see people post on LinkedIn nope, it's strong right now. They just reported, and I'm like, okay,
and you can't trust it anymore.
How can you trust it?
No, because you don't know where the numbers are coming from, right? The numbers are just like pie in the sky, estimates. It's we need some real numbers too. And I mean, you can use LinkedIn if you take away all the BS jobs out there and kind of get a barometer of where we are over year. I don't know if there's a way to kind of reverse engineer open roles. I don't know.
What I do is, and just to give a little plug in this, what I do is I actually go through, and anybody I'm connected to that voted, I'll just ask them what types of roles are you recruiting for. One of the messages I had back said, and this is from a VP of talent at a tech firm, said, we haven't stopped hiring. The jobs are fewer than previous years, but it's keeping us all busy. Our attrition rate is at an all-time low as well. So there's very little churn. This is good news, but it keeps the business and TA team guessing. So, and I'm getting a lot of those messages. So there are jobs out there. I think if you're on the job market, you got to be competitive. Maybe you got to try the desperate banner. Get creative. Work. I hate to say it right now, but you have to work hard if you want to find a job. And that really sucks because it's already a stressful time. But you have to work hard. You got to track things, and those jobs are out there. It just obviously not like it was a few years ago. So. Hopefully, and guys, if you have ideas for polls, I generally get pretty good reach, so I'm open to getting ideas for polls. But we'll hopefully have a really great poll for you guys next week as well.
Cool. Thank you for Joel's.
Cool.
Thank you for Joel's polls. Speaking of the September surge, well, now it's the October surge.
Oh,
speaking of the September,
you did, dude. You're
yeah, so I'm trying there. Listen, it's a beautiful day here in New York. It's a beautiful day for playoff baseball. Here, we're rooting here for my New York Mets. Every other team could you know what. So let's get to it. Serge, tell us what's going on with the weather.
Hello, beautiful people. Adam, you stole my joke. I had exactly that lined up, but I guess we'll deal with it. Yeah, you're pretty fast. All right, before we check in on the HR weather, I want to check in on the real weather and send our well wishes to our friends in Florida right now with Hurricane Milton supposed to hit around tomorrow evening and Thursday. Definitely sending our prayers, definitely hoping it's not as bad as forecasted. So, Danielle, stay safe, and everyone in the Tampa area, Fort Myers, definitely hunker down, hoping for the best. But how about we jump into the HR weather, where I hope that the forecast is a little brighter, but the forecast is showing that we're not talking about ageism in the workplace hardly enough. So, a recent survey by Resume Now found that 90%, let me repeat that, 90% of workers over the age of 40 have faced age related discrimination. So, how does ageism show up at work? 49% of those workers are earning less than their coworkers doing the same jobs that are younger. 52% of the workforce, of that older workforce, is reporting that their employers are preferring younger hires. So obviously, this has had a huge mental impact on these folks, with 44% of them reporting depression and feeling isolated at work. So we don't tolerate this with any other type of demographic. So I don't know why age is often ignored. Because one of the things that I often hear is that boomers or Gen X are just not as technically capable. And I'm going to call BS on that. I will take a Gen X employee any day when it comes to understanding the work tools that we leverage on a daily basis. So let's remember, diversity embraces people of all ages and backgrounds. So let's turn this forecast around. Clear skies are ahead when we ensure that age is just a number and not a barrier. That's the HR weather. Let's get back to the panel, please.
What a great forecast.
I have a lot of thoughts about this
Oh,
one.
I can't wait to hear your thoughts, Danielle. Jump in first.
Well, last year, I don't know if you guys know this, but I was recruited to join a co-working
Cult?
experience in Central Istria in Croatia. Yes, it's the middle of the country where most people don't
Do
venture.
you need shots for that?
There were shots. There was everything. We had cooking every night. It was a very age diverse group. I was the youngest, no surprise. But the oldest was around like 63, 60 something. And it was such a beautiful experience. And here's why. One of the things that was the goal of like this program was for everyone to work on a project that they haven't yet gotten around to,
Huh.
and to lean on the group to help them move forward in the project. We had like mentors and everything else. And there was also this poster on the wall in the living area. And essentially it was, I need help with, and I can help with. And each person put one or multiple post-its up on that poster to say what they could help with and what they needed help with. I found the experience to be so freaking beautiful because you had this intergenerational house, essentially, full of strangers up until then, up until this month, helping each other towards their own individual goals. And there was so much synergy. There were so many like creative ideas that people were activated, right?
Well, maybe
And
that was the ayahuasca that activated them.
in my opinion, I don't think that we create enough containers for this kind of engagement between generations. And I think that's one of the problems is not only is our society extremely polarized when it comes to like politics, but is also extremely polarized when it comes to ages. We don't have enough containers where people can really interact with each other and listen and learn from each other in an intentional way. And going back to the mentorship conversation, right, that we had before, and that's why I go into like this is what I do, right? I go into organizations and I create spaces called friendtorship circles where people get to actually share what they want to learn, share what they can teach someone else, and then everyone gets to leverage what they learn towards their own goals. So I think we need to create more of these spaces where more empathy can be built, more stories can be told and shared, and where people can really get to know each other.
Sounds like a cult to me, Danielle,
Yeah,
but
me too.
I'm kidding. No, that's really great insights, and I definitely do agree with you that we have to find ways that we can work together and take advantages of our strengths, because experience brings a lot to the table, but also seeing it from a different perspective of someone coming into the workplace is seeing
Wow.
things that the older generation is not seeing. So agree completely. Joel, you look pretty old. What's your thoughts here?
What?
My thought is, look, I'm gonna be completely honest.
Nonsense.
I'm just gonna say it.
Say it.
You're gonna
Um,
be real.
yeah, I'm gonna
He
look.
is the realist.
I just did like a you just saw that news report floating around, right, about how a lot of companies are getting ready to fire Gen Z workers
Yeah, I
because
did
they're
see
showing
that.
up late, they're doing all this sort of stuff. I did a poster on that on LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn's boosting video, and it's like
Mhm.
the comments were like, "Oh, it's the parents' fault. It's this fault." And honestly, I just think there's so much like finger pointing that goes on. And I know when I was coming into the workforce as a young millennial, like I read so many articles about how to manage millennials and how to do this.
Yeah.
And they're so entitled, they're this and that. So I'm like, dude, what do you think was going to happen? Like, if you're a jerk, when you're in the hiring manager position, what do you think is going to happen when you eventually get into that position where those same people are the hiring managers? You reap what you sow. And I'm not saying this across the board. Obviously, I know I've had lots of people who are older than me mentor me, but there's plenty of people on there. All you gotta do is read the comments on some of these LinkedIn posts where, like, there's just this like attitude that's out there. And so I think that just comes around, and it will come around again to millennials, like,
Mm.
or
Yep.
anybody that's pointing the finger at Gen Z and Gen A to come.
There's always finger
There's
pointing.
always there's always going to happen. And
Oh,
I do think I do think this is what I will say is, like, my personal opinion is ageism is stupid because I
wow.
hear, oh, people are gonna retire in 5 years. Average tenure is 2 to 3 years. I think younger people are way harder to manage because they always want promotions. I think you got to benefit if you have somebody who's like, hey, I'm ready just to be in the position. Maybe I'll float this out, get the wisdom from them. They've done things, they've adapted to technology over time. There's wisdom there. But unfortunately, what I hear from hiring managers is they want the whole time I've been in recruiting, it's up and comer. We want
Dude.
potential. We want somebody that's going to grow with the
Yeah.
company. And I've had to advise companies a lot of times on, like, hey, you actually need to go with this person because they're going to be wise. They're going to bring a different perception, and they're not going to ask for a promotion in 10 months. They
That's the
don't want to be
worst.
a senior director. So I know I just said a lot. I said a lot of things, but I just think this
Took
is
a
going to
lot of
be
shots at me. I'm just
it's going to
kidding.
be a
Don't take it
cycle that
personal,
it's
please.
going to be a cycle that perpetuates over and over and over. And I can just see it right now when in 20 years, I'm probably going to be complaining about the same thing, going, I
I'm
can't
always
find a
complaining.
job. And then they're going to pull up a post from 20 years ago and be like, you made fun of Gen Z on the Purple Acorn show. And I'm not the
Right.
same
It's just
stuff.
going to be
It's
in your
out
meta
there
glasses.
forever.
Well, Serge, we want to thank you as always for the weather report. Tune in every Tuesday if you want more of Serge and Serge's weather. Serge,
Surge.
thank you so much. Let's move on to HR Reacts. What are we reacting to?
Recorded that at HR
Oh,
Tech.
there it is. There it is.
Go.
Oh yeah.
Do it. Do it. Hit play. What is he saying?
Gen Zs are getting fired at alarming rates. My dad just sent me this article which talks about how 6 in 10 employers are already talking about firing the Gen Zs they hired only a couple months ago. I'm a Gen Z myself, so I thought this was really interesting. Especially because in the article, it talks about a lot of the stuff that I talk about here on this platform. According to the article, here's a reason why a lot of the Gen Zs are getting canned. They come unprepared to do the job at hand.
Correct.
Blame whatever you want, but as I've said many times on this platform, just having the degree isn't enough. You can cheat your way through college and come out with no skills. Then when you get on the job, you're going to have a rude awakening. Number 2, genuinely not wanting to do the work. Gen Zs want to arrive late and leave early and do the absolute bare minimum and generally are very low initiative. It is unreasonable to expect a great work-life balance, high-paying job straight out of college. Number 3, being unprofessional and generally having very poor communication skills. How you look, talk, and act matter, no matter what job you're doing. If you're going to work, dress nice. Learn how to speak up, speak confidently, give firm handshakes. By the way, I do think that Gen Z faces unique challenges that a lot of other previous generations haven't. But every generation goes through unique struggles, so it's important for us as Gen Z to recognize them and try and improve upon them. So work hard during college, have realistic expectations when you get out of college, learn how to be professional and communicate effectively, and follow me for more content.
Yeah.
All right, Danielle.
I don't-
I want to hear about these unique challenges. Tell me how 08 was not a unique challenge. Okay.
No.
Yeah,
I
we
do
didn't face
agree.
any of that.
Well, I graduated during the pandemic, so
Yeah. No,
that's
the pandemic is
That's one
unique.
for you.
It is very unique.
You know, one of the things I agree with his advice about, if you've gone through something, like it's not your job to be like, woe is me, right? But I do, and to improve and to recognize, oh, here are my shortcomings. What can I do to change that? I do think that if you go back 30 years, you graduate from college, you go into a 6 to 12 month training program. In most jobs, like my mom went through a 6-month training program. She was a speech pathology major. She ended up in tech. So they equipped her with all the skills and probably the professionalism that she was not taught in college, because she was also, having fun. And then you fast forward to now, and these generations who rate their career preparedness, like their career centers, so poorly. They're being taught by people who haven't worked in the corporate world for 30 years, and they're expected to graduate and know exactly how to act, what to do, what to say, how to be. And I understand it's up to you to step up to the plate and to educate yourself. I did that too. In a lot of ways, I followed my siblings and their footsteps. But I will say, I think that this generation gets the least amount of support. Talk about graduating into the pandemic, even less support than the millennials before us. So I think that we do have a different situation. I'm not saying it's worse or better, but it's just different. And I think that's important to
It's reality.
recognize.
It's reality of the situation, right? And it's real. It's coming into a workplace that is, remote, when a company wasn't remote for all these years, and the
Right.
company is not up to speed, and they're not empowering, and they're not giving the tools, and they're not setting new candidates up for success. So there is blame on that side too. A lot of these things we talk about ad nauseum. I think there are a lot of myths. I've seen some incredibly ambitious, Gen Zs out there. So I think there's a lot of BS here, and I think there's a lot of reality to it. But to Joel's point earlier, we've all been through it. I was working. I was at SiriusXM during 2008, and I survived rounds and rounds of layoffs there too, right? Like we've been through this shit.
You need the numbers, man. 8.8 million jobs lost in 08. Unemployment went to 10%. 8 million homes foreclosed. 17 trillion household wealth evaporated. Like that 08, I think when you look at it, like it is tough right now, but those numbers are like, I mean, it was just that was a whole different situation. We didn't have like access to information how we have it today.
No way, much less.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. And look, I obviously, like, you could be like, well,
it's different.
It's a different situation. Everyone has unique challenges. But the same thing is true. When I was coming in the workforce, they were saying the same thing. Millennials of this, that. They were saying we weren't coming in prepared and didn't know how workforce. But to your point, Danielle, it's like you're not going to learn that from school. I think school is the biggest hoax there is. Education is great. School and college, the way we have it set up, it's clearly not
a scam.
It is. It's a scam, man. They sell you on that first. I remember them selling me like, oh, if you get this accounting degree, you're guaranteed a $70,000 a year job. I remember my professor saying that. I was like, oh, I'll get an accounting job. And then 08 happened, and it just was not. It wasn't like that.
This is a topic again that keeps rearing its ugly head, right? So we need to get ahead of it. Let's keep the show rolling here, and I think we have another caller coming in.
We have Kirsten in the house. Good to see you.
You too.
I feel like, when did we do that? We did a podcast like what, 3.5, 4 years ago?
Yeah, you were on when I was with the Shark. Yeah, you were on with Rich Rosner.
Yeah, I think we did like a Christmas special.
Probably a holiday special. Yeah.
A holiday special. Yeah, I love it. Well, Why don't you give us a quick intro? Who are you? What do you do? And then I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today as well.
Hi, everyone. I am Kirsten Greggs. I am the Trap Recruiter here, excited to be with the Realist Recruiter. Trap stands for Trusted, Relationship Builder, Accountable, and Proactive. I have been in talent acquisition for going on 25 years. So I started as a toddler, clearly. And in 2017, I officially left corporate America 100% and started Trap Recruiter. So I do talent acquisition consulting, career coaching, and all things fun because I love recruiting.
Well, congratulations. So that's 7 years then.
7 years. October 24th will be 7 years.
All right. But I know there's a lot of people who are looking to get out of corporate. So before we get into the conversation, what's the
Don't do it. Not right now. How about this? Not right now.
Not right now. It is.
It's tough.
It is tough. But I think it's tough to find a job and it's tough to start a business. Either way, it's a hard situation. So we're going to talk about burnout when it comes to content creation and being a content creator. So I would love to get your background in terms of like how long you've been creating content, how you got started in content, and then I'd be just super curious to know like how do you kind of manage scheduling and like your job and bringing in money and content creation? Like how do you bundle it all together?
Okay, so I was doing something called #recruiter problems when I was still working at a global defense contractor. And there was only so much I could say as myself. So I like created this alternative. Well, I just used my first initial and middle name. And so I could post and pretty much,
was this on LinkedIn?
It was LinkedIn. I was posting things to link. Like it was like when memes were first getting, really popular. So you had like those meme generators, and then we would just take and type the words we wanted on there. Remember how like very, very basic things were back in the day. So this was probably like 2000. I don't even know, like 2010s or the late 2000s. So I would do recruiter problems, and then people started to realize it was me.
They're like, wait, that happened to you yesterday.
Correct. And because of the position that I was in, when I transitioned to a new organization as kind of the LinkedIn recruiter, so to speak, because again, we're talking about times when things weren't as sophisticated as they are now, and like each recruiter didn't really have a seat. So like I was the job poster because I was in operations, and everybody was coming to my profile because they were clicking on jobs because I'm working again for a huge global company, and Recruiter Problems was doing really well. I was blogging. I was fortunate enough to be connected with already, both personally and professionally, with people who were already very far advanced in terms of their content being widely consumed. These were SHRM influencers. They were the flagship foundational SHRM influencers and people that were creating things. So, I already had I didn't start from where everybody else started in terms of like getting recognition, because I had these huge platforms that were sharing my things. And again, during that time, the little jokey stuff, the funny stuff, the stuff that I do, wasn't that like a lot of like some people were like, oh, that's cool. And some people were like, oh my God, we have to stay professional. This sucks. And, there was a line between like, even when I named my company Trap Recruiter, like, is Trap Recruiter a joke or is Trap Recruiter like a real thing? But again, I have the reputation and the experience and the work to back up, all of the stuff I want to say and bring it to you in the Kirsten only authentic way. So I was blogging on a multi-contributor blog. Remember when that was a big thing? Performance I Create. That went away. We had our own individual blogs. I was still doing recruiter problems. Like initially it was weekly, and then honestly I lost the excitement around it, especially when, and I know we're going to say it's about content, but when people are stealing it and not giving credit, or like I would be at work and walking through, going to visit another office, seeing recruiters with my memes like posted to their thing, not doing it to me, or being invited to Facebook groups where they're putting their logos on my like, why would you invite me to this group? So there were things like that, but as I got
So how? Quick question: how many years were you into like that phase where you kind of first hit that? Like, oh, this isn't as exciting as it once was.
it was probably not until like 2020 where the burnout, and I don't think it was exclusive to I don't want to make content. I think I was burnt out totally by what was going on in the world. And by 2021, I had transitioned to like paid content. So writing for publications and not doing so much of the one-off marketing type of stuff, because that's not my forte. Like that's not my expertise. So I'm not the person that's like paying attention to SEO. I'm just putting out content and people are consuming it. So, like I wasn't really into that. I should have been. I learned that later on, but by then it became too late. Now the market is saturated with everybody doing job related, employment related content. And unfortunately, it takes a lot for folks to get through the weeds and get to stuff like what you all do and stuff like what I do and some of my peers do and some of my contemporaries do, because you have somebody who has an anecdotal one-time experience and then that becomes viral because it's an exception. It's this amazing thing happened, or this terrible thing happened to this one person, and now that becomes the standard because it's so extraordinary. It's so, ridiculous, or it's so horrible that we latch on to those things. So it got to the point where I was like, I feel like I'm just trauma bonding. I feel like I'm just complaining, and that's not the energy that I want to put out into the marketplace.
So did at that point were you kind of rethinking the strategy behind it, or like did you have to regroup? Like what was?
I absolutely did. And shout out to Rich again. I know I mentioned him at the beginning of the show because you were on that show, but he had me on I think it was Global TA Day. He has the wildest ideas, and they always work. He's like, I'm going to do this. He's like, I'm going to do 24 hours of just talking to one every hour. And it's like, okay. And I was on that show, and we connected in such a way that he's like, hey, I do this weekly thing. Do you want to come and be a co-host? And I was like, I don't know about that. He's like, no, you'll be great. It's fine. And, he really got me out of my shell. And, I do prefer live posting. Like Trap Chat used to be live, but with my schedule and with my guest schedules, it works better if we record things, because everybody doesn't have the bandwidth right now, or doesn't have the opportunity right now to be on in the middle of the day, or to be on in a different time zone, at that time. And I don't want to, miss out on amplifying voices that wouldn't otherwise be heard. So I do record Trap Chat now. Or, Rich and I get together once a year and we do a holiday special. We're calling it Rocking Around the Recruiter Tree now.
I love that.
And we just talked and that's focused on recruiters. My show is focused on any career related topic, anything about success, anything that, any women's empowerment, any topic that makes sense as it relates to getting your career or your entrepreneurial journey streamlined.
So as we kind of wrap up the segment here, what would be, because this is probably even like something which I kind of feel personally.
Yeah.
When we're feeling as a creator, or like a professional creator, somebody that's working, growing a business and creating content, what would be your piece of advice, kind of looking at those stages? And obviously you've been creating content for a long time. What would be that piece of advice to someone that is feeling burned out and going, do I need to just stop this, or do I need to regroup? What piece of advice would you have for them?
do what feels right for you. Do what's authentic to you. Don't do what the next person is doing. Like, I don't have a traditional podcast because I consume more things like this, live shows and unscripted things where I'm not editing and going back. Like, I like the mistakes. I like the, the hiccups, the fun, the cat running across the screen, like the kid coming in and waving, or sitting there like, what's going on, mom and dad, those type of things. So do what's right for you. Like, I wish I did more memes because that's what I like to do. I'm not on TikTok because I don't want to be. Like, I don't want to do that, and don't feel like you have to be. That's what you have to do. Don't feel like you have to write articles if that's not what you want to do, and especially if that's not a medium that you actually consume and share, and that you can be authentic with. So do what feels right for you, and that always comes through when you're excited about something, when you are enthusiastic about something, when you believe in the content that you're producing and sharing with the world. Like, that comes through every single time. So do what feels right for you.
If I see one more B2B podcast where it's like, tell me why you got started in the business. No, it's sports.
We kind of have to do those though, don't we?
I am a fan of, if you are not into your content, the people who are consuming it are not going to be into your content. You got to be into your content. That's why if you're going to be in TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, you got to get into it. You got to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, I don't know how you can go for years, which is probably what it takes to like really
It does.
your brand out there. So where can people find you? Where's the best place to connect? And where can people find out more about Trap Recruiter?
So I'm everywhere at Trap Recruiter. LinkedIn is great. I post everything there, articles, my live show recordings, any place I've been featured. I, obviously shared the show to my LinkedIn profile and all that good stuff. My website's not the most reliable because it hasn't been updated since like 2020. And so many things have happened since then. LinkedIn, I'm getting back active on, as well as Facebook. YouTube channel has all the live videos / recordings, and that's it. But I would say the most reliable place that has everything centralized is probably LinkedIn.
Good old LinkedIn. Gotta love it. Well, Kirsten, thanks so much. So great to see you. Hopefully we'll get to meet in real life soon, too. That would be amazing.
Well, come to TA Week in February in San Diego. I will be there. I'm hosting the sourcing stage, or emceeing the sourcing stage. So come there. Yeah.
Yes, San Diego. Shout out to TA Week in San Diego. We're looking forward to that. And we will move on now to HR Pause. So thanks, Kirsten.
Dog, it's Vish.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that is Joel's dog. Look at Vish, and maybe Vish looks like is Vish a boy or a girl?
Vish is a girl. So
she looks like she's tired from all of your content.
What's the name behind Vish? What's that name mean?
Okay, so this is a crazy story. Okay, I was living out in Southern California. I was like, I want a dog.
Whoa.
And this person was like,
Joe's chilling.
This person, my roommate was like, hey, someone I work with is giving away a pit bull, like a black pit bull, and I was like, oh, I'll take it. It was a puppy, and that ended up falling through. And then I was at a gas station getting an oil change, and this lady came in and was like, I've got 2 dogs here. Does somebody want to take these dogs? And I was like, no, I don't want to take 2, but I'll take 1. And so I actually had my friend, because I was working at the time and I couldn't get off work to take her home. My friend came to the gas station, my roommate, picked her up, and originally her name was Marilyn, but then we're like, who names a dog Marilyn?
It's weird.
Like Marilyn Monroe.
Well, that's what I don't know.
Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, Marilyn Manson. All right, and then eventually, she's half Vizsla and then half Pitbull. And so I was in San Diego one day and I was walking here, and someone came up and was like, Vizsla? And I was like, how did you know? And then suddenly her name just became The Vish, and she just got the nickname The Vish. And so she's now The Vish. She's great with kids. She's amazing. She's like 13. She's getting she's hobbling around a little bit, but I don't know. I really love her, although she's taking a back seat to the kids, but it's going to happen.
Shout out to Vish, and thank you for This Way Global for sponsoring us and their new tool, Sully Sandbox, a user-friendly interface to search and discover valuable data and AI solutions. And with access to high-quality data sets, you could tap into trusted and secure data and AI solutions. So take a cue from Sully and come play in the sandbox. And if you want to schedule a demo, scan that QR code on the screen. And by scheduling your demo, you'll also participate in This Way Global's Pause for Pause program, where they will donate $100 to your favorite pet charity. So shout out to Vish, shout out to This Way Global, and this is HR Pause. And I think that's gonna do it for us on this Tuesday. It is the 8th of October. I'm off to Citi Field later to see my Mets. What do you got going on this week, Danielle?
Well, I'm hunkering down here in Florida. I'm going to be inside most of the time because of the rain. Probably going to go for a walk now because it's nice out. But next week, I'll be tuning in from Tulsa, where I'm going to be doing a keynote at the Plugged In conference for remote work, all about Gen Z and how to retain and get the most out of this workforce.
Great stuff. Joel, what about you? What's cooking?
I'm in everybody's inbox. If you need recruiting help, hit me up. So onboarding a new employee as well tomorrow. So really
Love
excited about that. Big announcement.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Go.
And that's how we do it. We're keeping it real here. Thank you, ERIN, again for sponsoring and bringing the show to everybody. You know where to find out more. Check out ERIN and stay tuned for Hire Her, a Talent Collective podcast on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 on the East Coast. And if you want to find out more, head over to purpleacorn.io. Find us on our podcast on Spotify and catch us every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. here on the East Coast. I don't even know. It's 7 a.m. on the West Coast. There's only a couple people that listen to us on the West Coast. But if you're up early, come hang with us. We're on LinkedIn. I'm Adam. She's Danielle. He's Joel. And we are out.
Peace out.